All right, welcome back, Pauper players, to another Salt and Pauper video. Today we're bringing back a channel favorite. This is Mono Red Tron, and it got some incredible upgrades from the recently released Modern Horizons 3. So today we're going to show you a couple different showcase games where this deck does go the distance, and let's check it out in action. But before we do, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more weekly Pauper content. Let's take a look at the upgrades to this deck first. So first off, we have Skoa Ember Mage, the new namesake of the deck. I am calling this Skoatron. And this is a 4/4 for 6 legendary Goblin Wizard. And when he enters the battlefield, you can have it deal 4 damage to any target. You also have Grandeur, which means that if you have one of these in play and you have one in your hand, you can use its Grandeur ability by discarding it. And this allows you to discard it, sacrifice 2 mountains, and deal 4 more damage at any target. So basically Fire Blast on a stick. Additionally, this card got a new draw card called Glimpse the Impossible, which does exactly what this card, or what this deck wants it to do. It allows you to draw cards when you're on the top of your range and you've already hit all of your land drops. You don't need to ramp anymore and you just need gas. This lets you do that. It exiles 3 cards. You can play them this turn. And at the end of the turn, for any cards you didn't play, they go to your graveyard and you get a 1/1 spawn for them. So when you're trying to hit your land drops, you can cast this really early, very aggressively, just to make your land drops. And then it also gives you both blockers and ramp sources with those Eldrazi spawns. So it can help bridge the gap between 3 and 6. Which is definitely where this deck wants to be. You'll see we have a full set of boarding parties, Oliphants, and Skoas. In order to make the room for those, we ended up cutting a couple Filigree Familiars, which are fine, but not the best, and a couple Crimson Fleet Commodores. Now, this was pretty crucial because last time we played the deck, it was a more control-heavy format, and overall, the Monarch was a really good value engine, but these days, it's very aggressive, especially with so many like sneaky snackers flying around. So it definitely seems like more of a liability to have the Monarch than anything. And the 2-of here is really just to steal Monarch from control opponents if we happen to match up into any. Other than that, we're using Candy Trail and Expedition Map to smooth our draws. We have a couple Volcanic Spites as extra interaction to accompany our Lightning Bolts. And then we have 3 Rolling Thunders, which are our big finishers, and a set of Fiery Cannonades. Now, originally Fiery Cannonade was in here not to destroy the Crimson Fleet Commodores because it was a full 4-of, but now that we've cut down to 2, we can definitely swap this out for Breath Weapon, which may be the move. I didn't for these test games, but it is definitely something I'm looking at. Sideboard, fairly standard. Relic of Progenitus, Cast into Fire, Red Elemental Blast, Gorilla Shaman. Nothing really exciting to do with that. We have this for artifacts and fairies. We have this for artifacts. We have this for blue decks. We have this for graveyard decks. Pretty easy there. But let's go ahead and jump into this week's feature games. Let's show you what this deck can do, because I think you should be excited about it in this new meta, and Skoa really did up the power of this deck. All right, to start out this game, we have a pretty easy keep here. We have 2 lands. We have an Expedition Map with an Urza's Tower. We have a Rolling Thunder, a Cannonade, double Candy Trail, and a Lightning Bolt with 1 mountain to go with it. So most of our deck is online here. Now remember, in this deck, you don't need to hard mulligan for natural Tron. It really just is about finding Tron along the way in order to ramp things out. You just want to control the board and control your draws early on. Make sure that you have enough gas and you're hitting your land drops, and you should be just fine. This hand does that quite well. Opponent's going to start out on a Wild Growth. On a Forest. Makes me think this is Ponza, which is probably the Nightmare matchup. So let's see what the opponent has for us here. We're just going to lead off on a Candy Trail. Shows us a Mine and a Familiar, both of which we like. Opponent leads out on a Llanowar Visionary. Still definitely think we're up against Ponza, or maybe it's the Walls Cascade deck that's been roaming around. We're going to go ahead and Candy Trail again. We do see a Lightning Bolt. We see some removal spells there, so we're going to keep those. Now, we neglect to bolt this Llanowar Visionary here, mostly because we are about to Fiery Cannonade next turn. That is the play, so we're hoping they just play some small dudes and flood the board, and they don't really have a great payoff on 5. Admittedly, the deck tries to ramp to 6 most of the time, so 5 doesn't seem like the crucial break point here. They do just play another Llanowar Visionary, which is great for us. We hit another mountain, which is great. That means our Rolling Thunders are going to be online. We do have the Expedition map to hit the 3rd Tron land, but they do start the Monarch, and that's going to be fairly problematic, as we do not have a way in hand or on top that we know of to take this back. We do have Lightning Bolt for the Crimson Fleet, which is fine. We have our 2 mana here to pop the Expedition map to get the 3rd Tron land, so we are going to have Rolling Thunder online. We could also pop these Candy Trails, though, and try to dig for more juice. That does seem like it's going to be a good idea. Now, though, we get to see what the opponent is doing. They play this Spontaneous Artist here. And this is an energy card. It's from Kaladesh, so it's not a new energy card, but it does give us an idea of what they might be doing. It's a 3/3 for 4, which doesn't seem super good, but they get 1 energy and they can pay an energy to give something haste. And with a lot of the new energy cards out of MH3, we get an idea of what they may be trying here. They do get an Arbor Elf online and a Utopia Sprawl, so now this forest is becoming a problem very quickly. We did burn our Fiery Cannonade, which is a little unfortunate, but now we have the Rolling Thunder online. And if you'll do the math here, this is only 6 toughness of creatures, so we shall see exactly what they end up with at the end of this turn. Not 100% sure. We want to pull the punches with the Lightning Bolt, but I think we're just going to stop them here, make sure that they can't refill their board super hugely. We're going to go ahead and crack this. Rolling Thunder can clean this up with that land drop. So we are going to do that. We're just going to leave ourselves 2 mana here in order to crack the Candy Trail and keep going. They do have another Spontaneous Artist, which is a little unfortunate. Followed up with a Jewel Thief, though, isn't super, super scary. So they do just pass instead of hitting us for 3 there, which is fine. We're going to get to rip on this Oliphant, which is good. Gives us a big threat. They can't really attack into it, which is great. They lead on a Thriving Skyclaw, which is very aggressive and interesting. It does give 3 energy, though, which is a lot of energy for this type of deck where it only costs 1 to give something haste. They do pull the trigger and pay 3 energy to put a 1/1 counter on it, though. Seems fairly questionable to me. We're going to recoup 3 of that 4 life loss anyway, and any bolt kills this. We do top deck the bolt, but we're going to lead on a Glimpse here to see what we get. We see a Fiery Cannonade, which is pretty nice. We attack, they double block, and we Lightning Bolt just to kill both. It also pushes a little bit of damage through. We're just going to cash these 2 cards in for the spawns. We don't want to pull the trigger with the Fiery Cannonade because it's going to kill our own Oliphant there. Opponent just swinging for 7 here. Not really very scary. We are going to block just to avoid a dicey situation, but we're going to go ahead and attack here. They do have a ram through to get rid of our Oliphant, but they let the trigger resolve onto the Eldrazi spawn, which puts them at 15 life, which, if you are good at mathing, is Xaxes here. So we're going to go ahead and clean up game number 1. Big mistake from the opponent to punt that off to us. We would have been 2 damage shy otherwise. Think we may have lost that game unless we top decked, exactly another Tron land, but no need to see. Go ahead and steal that one out from under them. Onto game. All right, onto game number 2. We don't actually have a sideboard for this deck, so we leave it as is. We're going to go ahead and run with this hand. 4 lands and a Glimpse is pretty good. We have a Candy Trail, we have a Fiery Cannonade, so we're pretty well equipped for what they're doing. We're just going to go ahead and let this one rip. They do start on a Utopia Sprawl, which is a little unfortunate. We do hit an Oliphant, so we do have some top-end gas here if we find our 3rd Tron land. We're just going to lead on a Candy Trail. They have a Visionary. We're going to Candy Trail again. We have a Spite on top, so we do have some answer to their haste giver if they end up with that. But they Crimson Fleet Commodore, which is another really awkward situation because they're going to have the Monarch, and we don't have a good way to take it back. They do kind of go off here. They have a lot of ability to kind of curve out very strongly. They're going to go ahead and give this Jewel Thief haste, which is unfortunate. We have the Spite for the Crimson Fleet, so we're going to get that off the board, but they're going to keep refilling their hand with the Monarch. We are going to go ahead and glimpse here. We do go ahead and cash in on all 3 spawn tokens. We just want to kind of plug the board here so we can get to our 3rd Tron piece and maybe a Rolling Thunder, try to clear it out that way. They have a Riparian Tiger, which is pretty annoying. It's going to get very big. We just blocked for 6 there. We're going to go for a Cascade because we miss our land drop for the Tron land. Unfortunately, we just hit a Candy Trail on the Cascade, and that is not going to be good enough, so we go ahead and concede. Definitely saw the opponent curve out much, much faster than they did in game number 1. So we're going to make a little bit of adjustments in the mulligans of next game, but we do get to be on the play, and that is a big deal in tempo-based games like this. So alrighty, on to game number 3 here. We are on the play. This is a 2 Tron land plus mountain. We have double Fiery Cannonade, double Boarding Party. This hand is interesting. A little bit sketchy, if I'm being honest. But we are going to run with it, so let's go ahead and drop this tower and start things off. Double Fiery Cannonade should give us a lot of time against this deck. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough against their 3 drops, which is fairly annoying. They lead on an Arbor Elf. We're just going to bolt the Elf, try to slow them down, make our land drops. That'll lead into the Fiery Cannonade, which we like. They have a 2nd Arbor Elf. We're really just going to rip a Fiery Cannonade here and 1-for-1. It feels a little bit bad, but knowing that their deck has so many 3/3s, we just kind of take the Fiery Cannonade value when we can get it. We top deck the Expedition map here, which is pretty huge. So we do have Tron on turn 4. That's going to turn on our boarding parties. They're going to lead on an Avenging Hunter, though, which is pretty drastic. That is going to put us in a place where we're going to lose the game very quickly to that if it gets out of hand. We top deck a 2nd Mountain, though, which is fantastic because Rolling Thunder clears the board, stops them from getting that Forge trigger. And the opponent has a fairly weak turn here. They're just going to play a Jewel Thief, and with 4 mana up, they're just going to play an Attune with Aether to search for a land, which is not anything. So we're going to go ahead and lead on a boarding party here. We do have Glimpse mana available to us, but I think knowing that we have a Fiery Cannonade off the Cascade, we're going to pull the trigger on a 2nd Cannonade to clear their board and steal the initiative. That's huge for us because it means now the pressure is back on them. They do have a Spontaneous Artist, though, so they can give their dude haste and steal the initiative back, but they've already lost their Forge trigger, which is great for us. So they're going to get a Trap trigger here. But we are going to get a Forge trigger, which is fantastic. Opponent now at 0 cards, which is great. Unfortunately, they go to 8 here. And we have a land, so we are just going to dome them with a Rolling Thunder, and this game will stop right here. Strong start from this deck. A little bit of a weird deck to play against, admittedly. But let's go ahead and see what's in store for feature match game number 2. Deck held up very, very well. Didn't get to see Skoa, but Glimpse the Impossible doing a lot of work in the draw department here. Really like the upgrades that this deck got from. Alrighty, game number 2 here. We are on the draw. Double Tower, double land, double Spite with a boarding party is pretty weird. But we are going to run with it. Opponent starts on land Vault Scourge, which is very strange these days. Not sure what the opponent could be on. We hit a mine, though, so we are close to Tron. We're just going to lead on Tower, try not to reveal what we are, and then the opponent reveals what they are. They are on old-fashioned green Stompy, which I kind of love from the opponent. They lead on Quirion with a Vault Scourge. We're just going to play a land here. Pass the turn. We're going to take some damage. Ideally, we want to kill this Vault Scourge at the end of the turn so that they can't get their Rancor back. And we do take a little bit of damage for that, but we top deck a Lightning Bolt, which is fantastic because now if they go to Rancor up the Biograph, although we do have to drop 2 spells for this, because Rancor is on the stack, we actually get 2 spells for this, so it's an even 2 for 2, not too bad. We're just taking 2 here. Opponent down to 3 cards. They do play a Pit Skulk, which is fairly annoying, but nothing we can't handle here. We do have to take a little bit more damage, but then we're going to go ahead and wipe the board with a Rolling Thunder, so we do just that. And then we get to follow up with Boarding Party and Fiery Cannonade. Opponent just hits a land and passes, which is fantastic. We're going to lead on a Glimpse the Impossible and cast this Oliphant. We want the Oliphant because it provides trample, and we know the opponent has a whole bunch of little dudes. We just rip the Lightning Bolts at their face because it's going to be wasted anyway, and we don't need the extra spawn. But we'll take the spawn for Skoa. Opponent has a Rancor onto a Young Wolf. This time we are going to get to attack here. Get in there with a Boarding Party. Now we do allow them to go to blocks without pulling the trigger on this Fiery Cannonade, but we show you why. So we hold it in case they have anything else to put on this Young Wolf, and they do. They have an Elephant Guide, so we're going to whiff that with this Fiery Cannonade. And that's GG's. The opponent's going to scoop it up. Let's go to game number 2. Alrighty, game number 2. This, unfortunately, is a weird hand, but I think it is still a keep. We have a Filigree, we have a Fiery Cannonade, and we technically have 3 lands and a Candy Trail, so we are going to keep this. Opponent leads on a Garden, which is fine. It's not the aggressive 1-drop into Rancor start that we experienced last time. We hit land and a removal spell on top, so we're going to keep both of those. Unfortunately, the opponent goes into Biograph, which is pretty brutal for us because we know that on top here we only have 3 damage, so we somehow have to have 3 damage plus a damage. So we need to get to Skoa here, and we need to do so pretty quickly. We're just going to go ahead and thin our deck out of lands here so that we can top deck more removal spells and board interaction. We're going to go ahead and play a Mountain, but we really need to stem the bleeding. So we'll lead with a Filigree, draw some cards off of it. Opponent has a second Rancor, which is pretty brutal. We are going to see what our card allows us. We're hurting missing Tron here. That was one of the changes we made to the deck previously, was that it wasn't as focused as getting Tron, so it only had 3/3 power plants. We've now upped it to 4 of each, so Tron is going to be a little easier to attain in our land count, but unfortunately the opponent's start just much too strong for us. We're going to scoop it up here and just go into on the play for game number 3. Unfortunately, we're going to mulligan our first hand. This is a 5-land hand. It is not going to be fast enough if the opponent has a start similar to the last one. So unfortunately, we're going to 5. This one is frankly a little bit worse because we have no red mana, but we do have land, and Familiar. If we hit a Mountain, we have Glimpse. This is probably where we have to stop. Hurts a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and run it with 5. Opponent also mulligans to 5, though, which is pretty important for us to note. We're just going to lead on a tower and see what happens. Opponent doesn't have a 1-drop, which is great, and we hit an Expedition map a little bit off tempo to maximize. But we're still going to get to play this Filigree Familiar on the next turn if we need it. Opponent has a Burning Tree Emissary. That's fine. Goes for a Ledgewalker. We're just going to lead on a Filigree Familiar here. And now we can pop the Expedition map for a Mountain because we just top decked the land. So we just kind of naturaled out, which is great for us. That's always going to be hard to deal with for anybody. Opponent has a Howl of the Night Pack, though, so they are able to just eat our dude and apply some pressure with Nettle Sentinel. Opponent's just going to swing out. We do have Fiery Cannonade, so we're going to try to stem the bleeding that way just because we can't Rolling Thunder the Ledgewalker. They go ahead and Vines the Vastwood on the Nettle or on the Ledgewalker, which is a bummer. We're going to cycle the Oliphant here, go for the big board wipe with Rolling Thunder, but we're going to lead on a Glimpse. We do hit another Fiery Cannonade, which is kind of exactly what we needed. We're going to play the Expedition map and just let Skoa go to the graveyard once again. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to really kind of weave him into our play. Just haven't seen him off the top decks. Opponent has another Burning Tree into a River Boa, which is pretty lame. That regenerate is going to be big. We go to our turn, we top deck a Rolling Thunder. We're going to go ahead and tap out for the Rolling Thunder, but opponent F6'd through the Regenerate trigger, which I think was pretty detrimental for them. I don't think it would have won them the game, though. They hit a land drop into a Nest Invader, and we just land drop and go back. We have a Boarding Party and a Rolling Thunder. We're going to go ahead and cast the Boarding Party, but the opponent just scoops it up. They see the writing on the wall. We do have the Rolling Thunder as a huge finisher for, what is that, 12, 13 damage on top of that. So we are just about ready to kill them from hand anyway. An opponent scoops it up. GG's to the opponent. Really, really cool deck. And overall, I had a ton of fun testing it throughout the week. Really enjoyed playing with Modern Horizons 3 at the pre-release. Skoa was an absolute all-star in that as well. Turns out Fire Blast on a stick is pretty good. Hopefully, guys, I hope you enjoy the deck. I absolutely love this archetype. I think it's really good right now with a lot of the go-wide decks coming back into popularity and people's tendency to play mono-red into an unknown metagame. Fiery Cannonades or Breath Weapons, depending on what you have access to, are going to get a lot of work done in this metagame. And a deck that can take advantage of that with Rolling Thunder is really going to do well. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the algorithm. Drop a comment down below. Let me know if there's a card that you think would fit better in this deck than one I'm running. Really interested in tuning this deck with the community and seeing what you guys think. So thank you so much for joining me as usual, guys. Goodbye forever, unless I see you next time.